Now we switch to item 16, the annual report on the control of the financial activities of the EIB, of course specifically the external activities. Mr. Dartmouth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everybody. I don't quite see all my colleagues here, but never mind. I'm sure they're here in spirit if they aren't here in actuality. Perhaps I could start off European Investment Bank by giving a little bit of historical perspective. The EIB, which I shall call it now throughout, was created by the Treaty of Rome in 1958 as the long-term lending bank of the then common market. But it should be noted that the EIB is first and foremost a bank, and this means that it should operate under normal commercial and banking principles. And it's worth saying that if it doesn't operate under normal commercial and banking principles, it could be very, very costly. By the way, it's a significant tribute to the people working there that there don't seem to be the same problems with the EIB that they've been with many commercial banks, not least, if I may be not to be impertinent to the chairman, but not least Deutsche Bank, which seems to be all over the place at the moment. The operational strategy of the EIB is first of all to finance viable capital projects and to borrow also on the capital markets in order to finance these projects. Now it's worth saying that it's a very, very substantial bank, and the aggregate subscriber capital of the EIB is 243 billion euros. This means that the four biggest shareholders, namely Germany, France, Italy and the UK, their 16.11% share amounts to over 39 billion euros. It's worth pointing out that even Slovakia, which only has a 0.25% share, nonetheless, that is valued, the book value of that is 600 million euros. So these are very substantial sums of money. The European Union provides a budgetary guarantee to the European Investment Bank in order to cover certain of its risks. Now, there is a danger here that this could create what in the jargon is called moral hazard. Moral hazard. Sorry, as a follower of Chelsea, I use as a keen Chelsea supporter, I use the Belgian pronunciation of the name hazard. Moral hazard. Which simply means that if the bank has, as the bank has unlimited funds, potentially because of the EU guarantee, that it starts indulging in risky practices in its lending. Although I have to say that that hasn't actually happened. I would also note that 25% of its total financing relates to climate change, and this is planned to rise to 35% by 2020. Now, it should be pointed out that lending to deal with climate change projects is actually duplicated in other areas, and so perhaps the EIB should strongly consider this level of funding. This is one of the recommendations in the opinion. I also note that the EIB lending to Turkey in particular and the Mediterranean partner countries, namely Jordan, Lebanon and Egypt, amounts to over 15 billion over the next 5 years. And Transparency International considers these countries to be among the worst countries in the world for corruption. So these should be very, very carefully looked at. Now, having made a negative comment about a marginally negative comment about the climate change lending, it should also be pointed out that EIB funds have been used by companies implicated in the emissions scandal, specifically Volkswagen. It may have been that EIB funds have been used to finance activity that was both unethical and more than that, illegal. The opinion also recommends that the EIB should increase its transparency, not only towards the European Parliament, but also towards member state parliaments. It's only right that democratic representatives should have more information about the activities of the EIB. There will have to be some special arrangements in relating to the UK shareholding, which, as I said, is very, very substantial. In the midst of time, I qualified as a chartered accountant, and there's the chartered accountant concept of materiality, so that the UK holding valued at in excess of 39 billion euros, which I referred to earlier, is certainly material. finally, the systems need to be rigorous and transparent. Now, there's one point that is also in the opinion that the commitment to commercial banking practices and commercial control should continue and indeed be emphasised. Otherwise, it could be very costly. And I finally put in the opinion, but I think I'll leave that bit to the end of the discussion.
Okay, so Mr. Rapporteur, can you conclude this first debate?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I'd like to thank the representative of the Commission for making a very coherent and very fluent attempt to actually respond and address some of the points that I made. It doesn't always happen in this committee that representatives of the Commission respond to the comments made by members. So I just want to say how much I appreciate that. I think, having now thought about this, actually, I think that the real impressive thing about the EIB is that, in view that is that there was a massive worldwide financial crisis and banking crisis post-2009, where, for instance, to make it nice and neutral, very large institutions, AIG being one, classically Lehman Brothers went under, Citibank was at risk, and so on and so on. And the EIB, which is a state entity, managed to avoid all that. And I think that that's a huge tribute, number one, to the people working there, and number two, to the quote unquote conservative with a small p principles on which the bank has actually operated. And I just would say that that if it becomes more politicized and the commercial principles are relaxed, there's always then the danger of something going wrong is thereby enhanced. But they've certainly avoided it up to now, and I think it's very impressive, and I strongly suggest that continues. Now, I don't know if there's much appetite here to listen to a detailed discussion about whether it should be structured in a regional way as it is at the moment, or in a so-called horizontal way. I don't detect much appetite here for that at the moment, so I will leave that be and look forward to doubtless the written amendments which will be generated by that suggestion.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Dartmouth. The deadline for amendment is